Hey guys, Augiesaint here and welcome to the channel. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day, and today we have a little bit of a different video. We're checking out the upcoming Tainted Grail Fall of Avalon. It's a full-fledged open world RPG, kind of very similar to like Skyrim. Imagine yourself playing indie Skyrim, and this is where we are right now. I just want to give a massive shout out to Awaken Realms for actually sponsoring this video and sending us an early copy that we can go ahead and start recording some footage and get this review out for you guys. I think everybody else should be able to play this update on the 25th of March and then check all this stuff out for yourselves. So far, I have really enjoyed the game in the last 15 hours or so that I have been playing. I've kind of been stuck into it and getting really drawn into all these side quests and the stories and stuff and just fully immersed into the game. And the version that we're currently playing includes the prologue and Act 1. It's about 20 hours of gameplay covering the whole of Act 1, the story, and all the side content. There's a ton of side content, which I've been really enjoying. I can't actually pull myself away from it to actually come and make this video, as I just want to go back and play some more. So without further ado, let's just hop straight into the video and we can talk some more about the Tainted Grail, because I just can't wait for this game to actually come out.
The all-consuming Red Death. 600 years ago, King Arthur led the Great Escape from the homelands, where our kingdoms were ravaged by the plague. Leading people to Avalon, he started the Age of Conquest and took the island from the Four Dwellers. Using the mysterious powers of Menhirs, together with Merlin, they cleansed the land of the Weirdness, a primordial force of chaos and possibility. But now, long after the death of the king, Camelot is in shambles as Avalon fractures into chaos. Old legends are gone, and the weirdness is creeping back into our lands. The bleeding heart of the plague has started beating once more, and the Red Death has returned. Rulers of the island asylum, an order of the Red Priests, are desperate to stop it by any means necessary. Rotting in one of their cells is a stranger.
So first up, let's talk about the story of the game. It embraces a dark fantasy, offering a grim and twisted reimagining of the Arthurian legends. Familiar characters, even King Arthur himself, may surprise you in ways you won't expect. And Merlin is in there as well. I don't want to spoil too much of the story. It's a really dark and grim twist on the whole tale of the Arthur with Excalibur and Merlin, and also the fall of Avalon. Avalon being the region that we're actually playing in, and just how all the events actually conspired and what actually happened behind the curtains with Merlin and King Arthur, getting into some pretty dark stuff in the story. It's actually pretty interesting so far. I won't go into too much detail. We don't really get to see much of it in the beginning. So the premise is you setting out on a story adventure with Arthur. He's actually like a part of you when you break out of the asylum early on in the game. It's literally within the prologue, so it's not really spoiling much for you. And then you set out and you go and help him collect the rest of pieces of his souls and stuff. There's so many branching ways I could actually go about getting to the goal of the main quest. And I had like 3 different ways that I tried to do this one quest. And every single time I did go ahead and change it, something did change along the line. So it had like this butterfly effect, ultimately really deciding who gets killed and who doesn't get killed, and who you stay friends with and whose side you join, or who do you backstab. There's a lot of that happening in this game. For example, I came up to this village with a bunch of Vikings and I had to get into the Old Mother Temple, which was like guarded by all of these berserker guys, which is like really strong Viking dudes. I could just fight my way through all of them, and it would be very challenging, but it was possible. I did try it out, but it did progress. Or instead of doing that, we could actually talk to the person leading up to that, and we can get her permission to go past the berserkers. To do that, we would have to do something for, obviously, you know, you do something for me, I do something for you. You scratch my back, I scratch your back, kind of thing. So we do a little quest for her. It was actually a funny little quest. She asked us to drink this potion, and we started clucking like chickens and animals and stuff.
What the hell? Damn it, Therov. I wasn't expecting this, no gonna lie. I don't know what you're trying to say. Just come sit by the fire with me. It should wear off soon. Feeling better now? Try saying something. Glad to see you haven't lost your sense of humour.
And then that tied into another part of the story. So those are 2 different ways that I could just give you that tiny little example. There's a third way as well, which involves a lot of killing, but I'm not going to tell you about that. I'm going to leave it up to you to go figure it out. I don't want to spoil too much of the story. I'm just letting you guys know it's pretty diverse in the decisions you can make, and the decisions that you do make actually affect how the story unfolds. So I'm really interested to see how this actually affects the game later on, like decisions you make early, if you help somebody or don't help somebody, how that's going to change everything. And then that brings me to the side quests. This is actually where I've been having the most amount of fun. The side quests are so engaging and they're so well written that none of them feel like a fetch quest where you just start the quest, they give you an objective, you go there, fetch this item or kill this guy and come back, and then that's the end of the quest. There's so much diversity in the side quests and it's so fun for me actually to go ahead and pay attention to the story. And coming from me, that is quite a praise, because you guys know me, I don't really like story. Most of the time I'm always skipping through dialogue to get to the end game, but with this I actually paid attention to it and I was really drawn into the side quests of the people, especially in the world setting of how everything's like a dark fantasy and there's actually like, you know, bad times going on and there's undead monsters roaming around, there's ogres, there's all kinds of stuff trying to murder everybody wherever you look. But then there was these like fun quests to do in between stuff. For example, I had to go deliver this package to somebody that wasn't actually showing up, and then I blew up a hole that led down into a cellar. And I went to go find this guy, and it was this undead chef from like 600 years ago, this famous chef, and he discovered the new way of eating food, mixing like this terrible combination of foods like herring, which is fish, with cheese. And he said that was the best thing since sliced bread. And then I took that information back to the quest giver that gave it to me, because she was worried something way darker than that. It was actually like a bunch of monsters under the keep. And when I told her about the undead chef guy, and she actually knew about this guy from history stories and stuff, she actually just burst out laughing. And that was it, the end of that. And then I went back to him and he actually gave me a quest to go fish for him and go catch some herring and then bring it back to him so he could actually make me some of this food and enlighten me. But he warned me once I try it, I won't go back. So there was a little interesting thing to that quest. I haven't actually finished it up now. I'm actually trying to go and find that herring. So just weird little side quests like that. There's a bunch of them I've done. I helped this guy repair some docks and then repair stuff around the town. And then I helped this other noblewoman clear out a mansion of bandits and stuff. And then they took the mansion. Her husband didn't want the mansion. He actually didn't like her. And then he cut off his finger and like faked his death and ran away to this cave. And there's so many side quests that are actually really entertaining and interesting for me to get involved in. So I highly recommend checking out these side quests. They're very interesting in the little stories to them. Some of them are funny, some of them are pretty dark. There was another one about people's dreams, and I think it was like a vampire or something in the dream because he drank my blood and then he died. I don't know what exactly happened. That was completely weird. I went to like this dream world where people were set up by this camp. So as you can see, there's a ton of side quests there and they all have their own little interesting stories. None of them felt repetitive or go there, fetch this, kill this kind of quest. So I really did enjoy the side quest content in the game. And then let's talk about the general gameplay and why we're actually going about doing all these, because you can have a great story, but if you have bad gameplay, then nobody's going to really enjoy the game. And the gameplay for me was really fun. It had fast, engaging combat, and the combat was actually very hard. I was playing on normal difficulty, so right in the middle, I believe it had normal, easy, and story. And if you go up above normal, it was like normal, hard, survival, expert, or something like that. So it was pretty challenging even on normal. I was struggling early on, and then I did end up going like a mage class. I tried to make like a summoning mage. And one of the first quests I came across is Necromancer. I got his robes and stuff, which helped me with the necromancy and stuff. I found a skill to summon 2 skeleton soldiers, and that is how I started my first playthrough. And I say the combat is fast-paced because you have to do dodges as well as blocks and stuff. Otherwise, you'll take a ton of damage, especially when you do play melee. Not so much when I was playing my mage. I would summon the skeletons and then charge them in. And then from the backline, I'd sit there shooting some fireballs and stuff as I was going for like the mage playthrough. But then on another playthrough, I was doing like a rogue build, and then the melee combat is way more challenging because you have to dodge the attacks of the enemies. They aren't really telegraphed, but you can see there's like a little bit of wind up to all the enemies' attacks. There's some interesting boss fights as well, with a little bit of mechanics, nothing too major, too serious. Like this guy, as you can see in the background, he like splits up and you have to find the right clone to hit. Or if you hit the other things that he spawns, he goes into like a down state, so you can get a bit of damage on him. So interesting, but not like too crazy. I'm sure later on we'll get a lot more bosses with maybe more interesting mechanics and stuff. But I just want to warn you guys, these enemies are very, very accurate. Like the ogres, and a lot of the enemies actually throw stuff at you, like rocks and things. And if you don't parry those, you'll take quite a bit of damage. So make sure you learn your timings on the dodges and the blocks and everything, and do make use of everything there is to offer in the combat. Block, dodge, sneak attack, all of that stuff is in the game, so make sure you're using it. And the skill trees are pretty well set up. When you level up, you get 1 attribute point and then you get 1 skill tree point. And you also do have these King Arthur powers, which I ended up getting 2 by the end of chapter 1. I'm sure we'll get a bunch more later on. Kind of think of them like shouts from Skyrim, because you know you're the Dragonborn. Over here, instead of the Dragonborn, you do have Arthur's soul infused inside you, and then he obviously has access to Excalibur and some other stuff, which I'm sure will unlock further on in the game. The talent trees themselves were pretty interesting. There's quite a few things for like crafting, for sneaking combat, one-handed combat, two-handed combat, magic, archery, everything you could think of. And it did level up very similar to Skyrim, where when you use the abilities or like you go into combat and you block or you get hit with light armor on, your light armor skill is going to start increasing. If you're attacking with one-handed weapons, your one-handed level is going to start increasing. Archery, everything like that, very, very similar to Skyrim. If you have played Skyrim, this will be pretty familiar with you in the combat and how everything works, leveling up and all the skill trees. It's pretty fun. You can go ahead and make yourself a pretty interesting build. The armor and stuff was also very interesting, and the crafting itself, I did like the crafting system. It was just a little bit expensive early on, but you could add ruin sockets to armor and like increase the defense, make enemies burn when they hit you. With the weapons, you could actually set enemies on fire, poison them, all kinds of stuff. And I also did find quite a few armor sets that gave you specific bonuses. I was using one that gave me a lot of melee critical hit chance, and then this chest piece that I had was actually increasing my melee damage while I was full health, which I try to play on full health all the time. Get really good at dodging everything, so you can make yourself a pretty specific build. There was like some heavy armor for heavy combat as well, increasing your stamina and decreasing your stamina drain, increasing your damage at like lower stamina, lower health. So there was quite a bit of depth to the build, and like how you actually go about setting up your talent trees and everything, and then gear to coincide with that to make your preferred playstyle better. If you want to go like a stealth archer or a mage or whatever build it is you like. So I did like that about the game, because I do like having access to all these things and then really enhancing my own style of playing. So that was pretty cool, and I did enjoy that. So that covers the gameplay really well. And then the inventory system was also rather good, with a lot of the materials and stuff actually having like almost no weight. So you could carry around a lot of stuff with you. Quite often in these types of games, you'll be exploring, you're picking everything up, and then without even knowing it, you'll be over encumbered in like one run through a dungeon. I didn't actually find myself over encumbered one time, and I'm quite a pack rat. I like to pick up everything. I collected all the armor and dumped it all in my stash. There was a stash at the first little town we came across, and I just dumped everything in there, but I never ever got over encumbered, even while picking up a bunch of different armors and weapons and stuff. So I think the weight system is actually fairly lenient, and I do like that, because especially with these kind of games, you don't want to worry about your weight system a little bit, but you don't want to make it like the main focus. Like when you're out looting and you come across something fancy and you can't pick it up, or you can, but then you have to go ahead and drop something else in your inventory that you really wanted to keep. So that's a real good point for me, having such a large weight capacity, so we can actually go ahead and explore, because the game does reward you quite a bit for exploring, which for me is one of my favorite things to do in these kinds of games, is exploring every nook and cranny and every cave and opening every chest to see what's inside it. There's lockpicking, pretty much exactly the same as Skyrim. Lockpicking was quite easy. And then you can also go ahead and cook stuff. All these ingredients and things that we have been looting and finding, you can cook those up pretty easily. And there's also alchemy, so you can also use all of these ingredients to brew yourself potions, make yourself food. And there is even a side quest involving making food, a specific meal for somebody. There's recipes you could find also by exploring or just buying them from vendors and stuff. So I really do enjoy how the game is set out, and there's so much to do, and it's really immersive for me. As I said to you guys before, I don't really like story and stuff. I skip most of it, but I did find myself getting really immersed into the game with the gameplay as well as the story design and everything. And then let's talk about the graphics and the performance. Graphics overall wasn't amazing, but it wasn't bad. It was like just good enough to immerse me and believe everything that I was seeing in front of me. Good sound effects, good hits and stuff from the enemies, especially when you hit the crit. And then sometimes when you sneak attack and you got like a one-hit crit kill, it would like do a little slow motion camera and everything with a good sound effect, as well as panning well and stuff like that. There was even a photo mode, so that's pretty cool to see that. And the performance on my PC was pretty good. I was running on ultra settings with mostly over 80 FPS all the time. I don't have an up-to-date supercomputer, but I do have a 3080 and a Ryzen 9, so I was running pretty well on that, although it is beginning to show its age now, but it still ran the game perfectly smooth with everything cranked up to the max. And now let's talk about some of the negatives. There was quite a few visual bugs for me, but this is the early copy, and I'm sure they will get that all polished out closer to launch. I had a couple of visual bugs and some audio bugs, but nothing that just closing the game and opening the game didn't fix for me. And then I did come across one game-breaking bug, I would say. It would actually halt my progress. When I tried to go into the All Mother's Temple, the game would just crash and close the desktop every single time. But then a couple of hours later, there was actually an update to the game, and I'm sure that is what they ended up fixing, because then I went back to the place and I could actually get into the temple and progress the story further. So other than that, there wasn't anything else crazy like bug-wise, just a couple of, like I said, audio and visual bugs. I'd restart the game and then it would be working fine. So overall, I would say it's pretty polished, and then obviously they will be making it even better closer to launch, or once we do get the full version. I'm sure we'll have like a day one update on the version we have had as well when we get to the actual 1.0 version. I'm sure they will work on fixing up and polishing off all the little things like the visual bugs, audio bugs, all that kind of stuff. It's nothing too bad to say on that side of the game. And then overall, I think this is getting pretty lengthy now. So massive shout out again to Awaken Rounds for sending me the copy and sponsoring this video. Before you guys actually reached out to me, I had no idea about this game. It's really ignited the spark inside, man. I can't wait to see where this game goes. It's looking really interesting for a little indie game, very much. I'm really impressed and I can't wait to see where you guys actually go with this game. I'll be looking forward to the full version when it does come out, and I'll definitely be covering it on the channel and playing it some more. So thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like and a sub to the channel. It helps me out so much, and I'll catch you beautiful people in the next one. Augiesaint now.
Run free and dive into the sky. Hear the wind crying out its prayer while we're so